Hey guys, STLYoungblood back with you with some actual multiplayer footage from the Arena Commander public matches. And I have to say, it's really been a hell of a lot of fun playing the game so far, but it is significantly different from the Vanduul Swarm mode that we've played. Now the purpose of this video is to kind of give some tips and advice about the multiplayer side of this game, and really kind of hopefully, help you understand a little bit better what you can expect when it's your turn to join in on it. Now, one of the biggest changes from fighting the AI to fighting players in a confined space is that you end up in a lot of head-to-head engagements. When you're attacking the AI, they're typically spread out. They're fighting your friendlies. They're not all coming after you. Well, since this game mode is Battle Royale, everyone is fighting everyone. And what that means is most people are targeting that closest hostile and really going right at them, just a straight beeline. Personally, and I think some of this will probably change once we get to team-based games. You'll be able to kind of swoop in and clear people off of their tail. But it's something you need to keep in mind. There is a lot of head-to-head stuff. Now, it's going to be important that you realize what ship you're flying and use that to your advantage. Because where it stands right now, and the 300i is what, in my mind at least, is the best option right now to fight with. Now, I know it's really early to say something like that, and there's probably people that don't have the opportunity to play, and they're like, "Oh crap, I've got the Hornet." Well, don't worry about it. Let me kind of explain it a little bit. I already mentioned that most battles end up with you going head-to-head with another fighter. Well, the weapons loadout on the 300 makes it more proficient at longer ranges, especially with the Omni Skies on the wings. So if you're flying a 300 in the Battle Royale, you're going to be best suited towards working at longer range engagements. Your weapons actually do fairly well outside of the missile lock-on range too, so you're able to get a lot of damage before the other person can start getting into their comfort zones. And then while I feel the 300 is kind of the best bet overall right now, it's really based on the fact that, these are pretty wide open maps. There's not a whole lot of team play. And then when you really get out into the universe and we start seeing the ability to surprise enemies, we're looking at you, Hornet Ghost owners, then we're going to see the Hornet really start to shine a little bit more. And maybe that comes even with some changes in multiplayer. But one of the reasons I feel that the 300 is so good at range is that the Bulldog Repeater and the Omni Skies travel at about the same speeds, basically meaning that all your rounds that you're firing are hitting about the same place at the same time. So if you're accurate at ranges, you're doing more damage. Now the Hornet's using some of the Bulldogs too, but on the wings you've got the Gatling guns. And they actually have some bullet drop-off, and that doesn't always allow you to land all your shots on the same location because they're hitting at different times and locations and speeds. That being said, the wingtip Gatling guns do absolutely shred enemies up close, which means that that's where the Hornet wants to fight. You can get into some engagements to work in your favor using a Hornet. I like to try and skirt along the outside of the maps a little bit, fly in between asteroids and keep the asteroids between you and your enemy, especially if your enemy is using a 300. On the Broken Moon map, as well as Dying Star, I like to personally keep the enemy behind the space platforms that are out there. So as I'm working on actually closing the distance, I've got some protection. So they're going to be coming straight at you most of the time, and you're closing the distance. And either way, every meter that you are closing puts you closer and closer, and that closer zone is your prime killing zone. Now, the Aurora has been interesting so far, and I've actually find that it performs better than I really expected it to. It's a bit sluggish, and it's not fancy, and it's not really stylish, but it has proven to be the most durable ship that I've flown yet, which was really surprising. I also kind of feel like the Hornet, for being a military-type ship, is really pretty flimsy. I feel like it takes damage worse than the other ships do. Now, there isn't really much to say about the Aurora, especially in its current state, other than it feels like kind of a middle ground between the two ships I just talked about. And hopefully you don't take that as a cop-out. But basically, it's not going to beat a Hornet up close, and it's not going to beat a 300 at range. So kind of try and stay in the middle ground between those two. Use your ability to spam a crap load of lasers at your target, since they don't use a lot of power. Now, as I've been playing, I've crashed a ton on the Broken Moon map. And I don't mean that in like I've ran into shit. I mean, that's happened too, but the game has crashed a lot for me. Other people have suggested that I try to delete the user files that some people have suggested, and it didn't solve any problems for me. So Broken Moon has really been where most of the fights have been, so that's where I've been trying to play. But once I actually go over to Dying Star, I don't have any issues. Other people online have kind of noticed that same correlation too, so I think there's something going on with Broken Moon. So if you get into the multiplayer and you notice that you're having problems on Broken Moon, it's probably not just you. Try the other one and see if that has the same problems. Now, there's two things that I want you all to be aware of really prior to getting into these engagements. First off is, it's a very rocket-heavy experience. Before the last patch, they were more effective, the rockets were. But with this most recent patch, they actually buffed our countermeasures, making it easier to break the locks, which is great. Now, it's really more about awareness to stay alive and really kind of using those options when you have them available. So basically, your ship's going to have two different types of countermeasures which you can change on the keyboard. You have Chaff, which is designed to confuse the missile lock and make it hard to acquire, and then you have Flares, which is actually going to pull heat seekers off of you and to the flare. Right now, all the missiles in the game, I believe, are heat seekers, so Flares are really going to be the better choice for engagements right now. At least in my experience, it's worked better for me, and based on what I've read and heard, that makes sense. The other thing that I hit on a little bit so far, and that's the head-on encounters in this game. Everyone is hanging on that line as long as possible because they want to try and get that kill, and then boom, you run right into each other, and it freaking sucks. Now, there's a couple things that you could do to try and avoid this, and the first of which is just to be ready to kill your thrusters the closer you get to your target. Change directions and try to fly and get behind them. Another option is to decouple the closer that you get and start to strafe to one side or the other, maybe up or down when you're getting close to the enemy. And finally, the last one that I've really found is you can kind of roll to one side and veer off at the last second. Now keep in mind, your ship inherits some of the G's that you actually have, and you're going to slide some. So even more if you're using Comm Stab off. So basically, if you're too late, you're still going to crash into the enemy. So I think I actually think some people are kind of looking at crashing as a viable tactic, so beware. I don't think most people probably don't want to crash, and there's just kind of lack of awareness, but there are some that seem like they're coming right at you just for the hell of it. I'm currently working on a voice attack command to help kind of evade in some of these situations, and I've tested out a few, and I'm about settled on what I think is working well. For those of you that don't know what voice attack is, it's a very awesome program that basically is speech recognition software. I started out with a guy named Oricard's profile and have kind of made some changes to it to make it my own, and once I get mine set up the way I like, I'm going to make it available for everybody to download. So that's what I wanted to cover with you all so far. There is a learning curve with this game. There are going to be some very good pilots out there, and there's going to be some bugs just in the alpha. If you can keep those things in mind and you're ready to die a lot, you'll be fine. If you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to my channel because I'm going to be continuing to do some guides on this game and some tips. There's going to be a lot more Star Citizen content. I've got some other topics that I want to discuss, and those videos will be out early next week. So basically, stay tuned for a whole lot more. If you have questions, throw them in the comments. Otherwise, I'll catch you later. Take care.